So we're back in Inverness after 3 days and 500 miles around Scotland's iconic North Coast 500. Now, if you're not familiar with the North Coast 500, then it's an absolutely amazing riding route, and I wholeheartedly recommend that you come and have a go at it. For 3 days, we've just been in the wilderness. We've seen Highland cows, we've seen amazing mountain passes, we've seen waterfalls, we've seen stunning coastal views, we've seen things that I've never seen in my 25 years of living in the UK, and I can't believe it's taken me this long to come up to the NC 500. So if you're a biker or if you're a car enthusiast, you know, get yourself up to the North Coast and take in those stunning views. But this isn't a travel documentary, and you didn't come here to learn about that really. So onto the bikes, and what a test for the 3 new 500s. All of them have performed amicably over the 3 days. I've been thoroughly impressed with all of the bikes. But what I'm going to do now is run you through my verdict on each of them. But before I can do that, it's probably important to talk about what's new on all 3 models. And I'm going to start with the CBR first. So starting up front, the eagle-eyed amongst you might notice that there's a set of Showa separate function big piston forks. Now these are upside down, they're golden, and they look so much better than the previous bike's conventional looking units. And bolted to the bottom of those, you've also got a set of dual 4-piston radial mounted calipers as well. And these do away with the old bike's single disc and 2-piston caliper setup up front. Staying with the front end, you've also got a redesigned set of LED headlights as well, and these are taken straight from the CBR500R, as are in fact the forks below them. On top of that, you've also now got an ever so slightly lighter swing arm as well, and Honda are claiming that this gives ever so slightly stiffer performance whilst being ever so slightly lighter as well. It's around about 1 kilo lighter than the old unit. And outside of that, you've also got revised shock settings on the 5-stage preload adjustable shock to help work with the new forks. Now, outside of that, you've kind of got the same styling as before. Still looks like a mini Fireblade. It's still got winglets, even though it only makes 47 brake horsepower, and it still complies with A2 licence laws. The engine itself was already Euro 5. In fact, Honda changed that on all 3 bikes in 2020. So no need to change it there. But Honda did go further and actually tweak the fuel injection settings for a little bit more of a torquey performance throughout the revs. Outside of that as well, there's a new radiator which sheds just shy of 100 grams off the overall weight, and shedding a little more weight on top of that is some revised wheel designs as well. So how does that work in practice? Well, it may look like a mini Fireblade, but it's actually a doddle to ride. You kind of sit in the bike, it's a little bit upright, and it's nice and gentle on the wrists. It'd be a nice companion if you were a new rider stepping up to a big bike for the first time, or an experienced rider looking for something coming back down capacities, or, you know, wanting something else in the garage, maybe for commuting or a little bit of fun at the weekends. And whilst it is upright and it's not particularly focused and sporty, it is nice and comfortable, and that new suspension is seriously composed. Combined with that new braking setup as well, which provides a nice progressive feel. There's minimal dive from that front end. It doesn't hop like a pogo stick when you get on the brakes, and there's no intrusion from the ABS no matter how hard you yank on that lever. And then combined with that as well is a set of quality Michelin Road 5 tyres, which provide fabulous grip in the wet or dry. And it's just been a lovely package all the way round the North Coast 500. On top of that, which is a really nice feature actually, is a span adjustable brake lever, which you don't get on certain other bikes in this class. What I would like though is a TFT dash. Now, for some that might not be necessary, but this is one of the most expensive bikes in the A2 sports bike class, and although it hasn't got an official sales figure yet for 2022, Honda have told us it's going to be ever so slightly more expensive than the previous incarnation. And bikes like KTM's RC390, well, they've already got a TFT and mobile connectivity, so it's something I'd like to see on the Honda moving forwards. So moving on to the CB500X then, and I'm not going to bore you with all the statistics again and all of the sort of what's new and has it worked, because all 3 of these bikes actually share the same basic mainframe and the same engine. So a lot of the changes are transferred across all 3 bikes. This gets the Showa separate function big piston forks, as I said before. However, this has got a little bit more travel on it because this is the adventure bike option. And also because it's an adventure bike option, it's got a 19-inch front wheel as well. What this doesn't get is the radial mounted brake calipers. What it's actually got is a set of dual twin piston axial mounted calipers instead, and they're actually really good. In fact, I think they're better than the radial calipers, which, you know, they might not look as blingy as the radials on the F and the R, but actually they give really, really good performance. As does that 19-inch front wheel, actually. You'd think that the 17s complete with the Road 5s would have better road holding and more confidence through the corners, but the X is actually the most fun of the lot when you're really thrashing it around. It's no surprise then really that it's a 3-time award winner in the MCN Awards as a previous incarnation, and you know, I wouldn't be surprised if this carried on in the same fortune moving forward. Outside of that, other changes include this paint job. This is a new paint job for 2022, and I really like it. You don't really get many green bikes anymore, so yeah, that's a really nice touch. Outside of that, you've also got some revised LED lighting, and actually these indicators here stay constantly on, not flashing. They emit a fixed Jaffa orange glow, both on this and on the F actually, just to give you a little bit more road presence as you're going forwards. Outside of that, you've also got the new swing arm on the back and the revised shock settings as well, like the rest of them. And as I said, this is probably my favourite of the bunch. You sit in it, it's got genuine big bike proportions, nice wide bars and a big screen, and I'd be more than happy taking this on another big tour. I know we've just come back from one, but I'd be more than happy to saddle up and head into Europe on this. It might have only 47 brake horsepower, but it's got more than enough poke, probably for 2 up, certainly with luggage and 1 person, and I've been really, really impressed with it. It's also incredibly frugal as well. We had an afternoon today chasing each other around some of the Highland roads, and the MPG meter really struggled to drop below 85, and you know, that's going to return some huge fuel range figures, and I'm seriously impressed. So we'll finish on the CB500F, and this is the bike that I was kind of not least excited to ride, but it was the thing that sort of lit the fire least in my belly, because in the past I think the CB500F has kind of been in the shadow of these two bikes. It hasn't quite had its own identity. It's been a little bit of a run-of-the-mill standard naked bike that was good for beginner riders and commuters, but it just didn't have that pizzazz of the sporty Fireblade lookalike or the mini Africa twin. But that's all changed for 2022 because the new CB500F looks fantastic. I think you'll agree. What's new then? So it's got the same 41mm shower forks as the CBR. It's got the same brakes as the CBR. In fact, it's got basically identical changes to the CBR. It's got the same 785mm seat height. It's got the same rake, same trail, same wheelbase, same fuel economy claimed. All that's missing really is a front fairing. However, this is a much better bike, I think, than this bike. And when I say much better, there isn't a bad one amongst the three, really. However, with those slightly more upright bars, the F just feels really composed and really nice to ride. And combined with those Road 5 tyres, it's an absolute doddle in all conditions. We had some real torrential rain this morning, in fact, when we left Gairloch. And the front end composure on the F with those new forks and that confidence inspiring brake were just really, really impressive. I didn't think that I thought these bikes were going to be good, but I didn't think I was going to be that impressed with that naked machine, and it's really, really lovely. And then combined with that optional extra tool screen as well, I think it would be, you know, perfectly fine at doing a tour or doing the NC500 again. In fact, all of these bikes have done the route twice to accommodate all of the journalists that have been on this launch, and you know, it just speaks volumes of all three machines, but seriously impressed with that naked F. So much like the CBR, as I mentioned before, and in fact for the F as well, I would like to see a TFT dash on the F, and in fact that all three bikes kind of lack some of those gizmos. They've got a usable engine, they've got decent ABS that doesn't get involved every 5 seconds, but it's got no traction control, it's got no riding modes, it's got limited adjustment on its suspension and things like that. And when you look at things like the KTM, RC, Duke and Adventure range, they've just got a little bit more optional customizable stuff to make the A2 rider feel a little bit more special when they're riding it. Also, all three bikes are really credible machines, really nice to ride, but they just lack that final 5% in the excitement stakes. The engine is super smooth. It works as a stressed member in the chassis in all three bikes, and it's got loads of mounts in it to try and reduce vibration. And actually, when you're riding along above 60 miles per hour, you really can't hear the engine note anymore. In fact, the only thing that tells you that it's still running is a gentle vibration through the foot pegs, certainly on the two 17-inch wheel bikes over here. And that can get a little bit annoying in itself during long distance riding. But I just want a little bit more of a soundtrack, a little bit more of an occasion when I'm giving it the berries. And it's such a shame because lower down in the revs, the bikes sound fantastic. They give a nice little burble and a spit on the overrun, and they sound great around town. They just lack that final 5% when you're really giving it some and having a good time. So to sum up, there's not really a bad bike amongst these three. As we've demonstrated from the last 3 days, they've put up with torrential rain, they've done mountain passes, they've done cattle grids, single lanes, potholes, waterfalls, all sorts of stuff, and they have performed incredibly well and returned good fuel economies and big smiles on all of our faces. As I've said, the front end on all of them now looks much more grown up, it's nice and composed, and it feels really, really controlled under braking. All three bikes would be a great introduction to motorcycling for new riders, and indeed a good bike for experienced riders too. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please remember to like and subscribe, and stick around for more in the future. Thanks guys.